I've arrived at part two of what I think is going to be the final segment of my discussion of faith and time. A very unusual topic, but again, quickly, what we're talking about here is the possibility that the way we think about time spiritually is very impactful on our lives, and that in fact, here in the 21st century in the West, we tend more and more to think of, because of our scientific orientation and for other reasons, to think of time as linear. And maybe spiritually, the truth about time is that it's really not arranged in a 1, 2, 3, 4 line where you make stops along the way, but that the spiritual truth is like a focal point that you orbit. There's an eternal moment, as I've been saying, and your attempt to tap into that eternal moment in your day-to-day choices is really more important in fashioning a good life than you're going through each day sequentially and kind of working down a mental checklist to make sure you've been virtuous today. Uh, Things that are good to do are probably always good to do. They were good yesterday, they're good today, and they're good tomorrow. Sometimes we get them wrong, but we recognize that we're getting them wrong because we stay oriented to that focal point, to that origin of all goodness that radiates out to us. And of course, that's God, or that's whatever inspiration we draw from God. And we shouldn't be revising our choices of what to do based on certain situations, based on the circumstances surrounding those situations. We should keep taking our bearings constantly on that sameness that we need at the center of our lives. Well, I've expressed this several times in this little series in trying to get it across to you, and I hope it hasn't been completely incoherent, but I wanted to wrap up today by offering a couple of specific moral examples. Now that I spoke in part one about just being in the moment of goodness, so how does that carry you through specific decisions? And I'm going to give you two examples, both of which are, I think, going to be kind of controversial. In fact, you may not like what I'm going to say about either one of them. And that's good, because then maybe I can make you think about your own feelings on these topics. So let's take an example which it's not really a first-hand experience of mine, but it's related to something that was uh, told to me by another person. Let's say that you're at the pharmacy and there's somebody right in front of you. There's a mother with a child who's waiting to get her prescription handed to her, and the pharmacist passes it over the counter, and she looks at the ticket, and she gives it back and says, "I'm sorry, I can't pay for this. It's too much." And then the person standing right behind her in line whips out his credit card and says, "That's okay, put it on my card. We've got this." Now, I hope I would be that kind of person. We all, I think, would want to be that person. Sometimes we just don't. The spirit is willing, but the credit card isn't quite fast enough. We don't respond quickly enough. That would be great to be able to be in the moment like that and respond to an unusual situation. Here's the thing, though. So a lot of people will say, fine, but what if her child needs the prescription to be refilled? Or what if she has another child who gets sick? Or, what if she gets sick herself next year? You're just solving a problem that's right there in front of you today. That doesn't really solve the big problem, which is that poor people don't have access to inexpensive drugs. We need to do something about that. If you're really a good person, you should be lobbying your congressman, or writing op-eds about how evil Big Farm is, and that's what a good person does. Well, and do those things if you feel called upon to do them, but don't discredit the person who was standing there in line as being an inept and ineffectual do-gooder just because his solution was for today or for this week. Think about what might happen if the person were to say to this woman, now, if you need this refilled, here's my contact information. Just give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm good for all the drugs that you need. That would be kind of creepy. And probably she wouldn't want to take him up on that. Or if she did, would we be creating in her a kind of dependency that would keep her from making adjustments in her personal life that she needs to make? Maybe she can't afford the treatment for the child because her lifestyle is just too wasteful. That's a hard lesson to learn, but it's when we grow up, we need to learn things like that. We need to be independent and learn how to manage our own lives. It's not helping us to, when somebody else comes in and smooths over all the troubles that we've really made for ourselves. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the situation of this young woman, but maybe it is. Or maybe she has a live-in guy back home who takes the drug and sells it on the street to prop up his heroin habit or something like that. Well, we can't really control that, but if our do-gooder is promising the woman a virtually unending supply of free drugs in the future, then he's giving this deadbeat a chance to become a fixture in this poor woman's life. Maybe he even at some point becomes violent and he beats her to death or something. Now, I know it's far-fetched. You're going to say that it's far-fetched, and it is kind of, in a way, to say that we're supposed to be able to look that far down the road and avert disaster in that way. But although the do-gooder's responsibility for such a situation would not be 100% or even 50%, it's not 0.1% either, I think. There is some real responsibility when you choose to insert yourself into another person's life beyond today, into situations to come whose parameters you can't possibly predict. But because you're this good, generous person, you're going to intrude and just kind of create these blanket solutions. Yeah, you have some responsibility for that, even if you're lobbying for Congress to provide free medical care for everybody. You're probably going to create, if you're successful, and good luck with that, but even if you're successful, if we have free health care for all, we are probably creating a massive bureaucracy, the cost of which is much, much more than any of the money that ever actually reaches the poor people who need it. I'm sorry if this sounds cynical, but this is the real world. This is hard reality. Bureaucracies, especially vast bureaucracies, invite abuse, corruption, incompetence, sometimes stupidity. Sometimes they make situations worse than they originally were. I'm just saying, if you're truly a do-gooder, then you're right here, right now, focused on this particular situation. You see, insofar as you can, the relevant factors of the situation, and you're responding to them. Once you kick the can down the road, once you try to run this thing into the future, and in a way, you sort of play God. You climb in your throne and you say, I'm going to fix this problem for everybody from now on. Once you start doing that, you are kind of responsible for all the things that happen to go wrong farther up the line, and there will be some. So I think the good person is going to be the one who addresses the situation right here, right now. And if it carries farther, then, something in him is going to tell him, well, if she wants, I'll call her and check up on her next week. That's okay too. Now, let me quickly run another situation by you. Here's a conversation that I'm having with somebody that I don't really know that well, but we seem to be getting along pretty friendly. And I use the phrase on the warpath during this discussion. And I noticed that my would-be friend or my communicant gets he starts frowning and starts fidgeting, and eventually this person tells me, well, you know, that offended me. I'm half Chippewa. And when you said on the warpath, I felt like you were kind of making a cartoon out of my heritage. I didn't like that. So, of course, what I'm supposed to do is say, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, but it's because of my white privilege that I didn't know. So not only am I going to apologize to you, but I'm really going to work on that in the future, and I will never use that phrase again. And furthermore, when I talk to other people, I'm going to be on the lookout for, oh, is on the lookout okay? Kind of sounds like a soldier in a fort or something, but I'm going to try to purge my speech entirely of cliches that might offend anybody. No. I think our good person who's tapping into that source of radiance right here, right now, is going to look this person lovingly in the eye and say, I'm not apologizing for that. I used a figure of speech. I used a cliche. There are many cliches in our language. I can't avoid every cliche that might offend every person that I might speak to. I'm not going to say to you that I'm sorry that this offended you. Actually, I could say to you that since you know that I'm trying to be your friend, for you to bring that up to me and make me feel bad is not really a very friendly gesture. It could offend me, friend. Why are you making a big deal out of this? People say things to me all the time that offend me because of maybe my race or my age or my religion or my tastes, just even small personal things, but they still offend me. But as a functional adult, you need to not be so offended by these things. And I'm telling you this because I am being honest and straight with you. I'm concerned about you. I'm not here to check off some box for virtue points for the day. I'm telling you from person to person, you should really kind of try to get a hold of this because it's not good to be that sensitive. People are not trying to offend you in most cases when these things happen. We can't purge our language of every word and phrase that might possibly offend somebody out there. What if you're walking in the woods and a zephyr blows through the leaves and you hear something like warpath? I mean, is that going to set you on a boil because you heard the leaves rustling? And this is insane. You don't want to be insane, friend, brother. Calm down. This is worrisome to me, and I'm worried for you on your behalf. And please respect me for being honest and telling you this straight on instead of trying to be politically correct and doing the whole abject apology thing, which is going to make me feel like I'm virtuous. It's not going to do you a damn bit of good. It's not really doing me a bit of good either. So you may not, I told you wouldn't like these examples probably, but you may not like that one. But that to me is a response of a person who's living in the eternal moment, who's seeking his bearings or who's seeking her bearings from a source of goodness that is constant, abiding. It's God acting in response to right here, right now. It's not agenda driven. It just is. And that's the best I can do for two provocative examples. Sorry if they offended, only I'm not really sorry.